This is Tamara Forrester. Welcome to my Goddess Wisdom channel. Today, the big question is whether it's possible for someone who is a grandiose narcissist to actually play the role of a vulnerable narcissist when it works for them. Or is it that their grandiosity sort of gets in the way um, of them accomplishing that agenda? I'm hoping to sort of decipher today as I um, figure out step by step all these different layers of not just surviving a cult, but surviving a narcissistic relationship after you've already been sort of indoctrinated in a particular way and is now reprogramming yourself. How could I so have missed sort of what is this sort of grandiose narcissist? And it didn't start out that way at all. It's actually, what are the healthy signs? What's the signs of a healthy relationship? Respect, the first part of it. When we met, I have my business on the same property as where this person came to try to engage the property owner of where I have my business into, um, a business plan. And so they were there and seeing me running my show, doing my thing there in that environment, and sort of meeting me as this independent woman, sort of having my shop and earning US currency in sort of the third world where that's not necessarily so. You understand? I saw this person as, first of all, a visitor, and I was kind of trying to avoid visitors, or especially visitors who seem to be Rasta or aligned with Rasta in some way. And I was really traumatized and not really wanting, I'm just suspicious of men in general, and certainly ones who had locks in their head, even if they weren't necessarily from Jamaica. So, so I was kind of vigilant about protecting myself, and especially since I knew that there was this slander campaign going on anyway. So there's this rumor mill, and at the end of the day, those who are Rastafarian who are not actually in the inner group or in the inner cult, it's very easy for them to be told something by a member of the inner cult, and they sort of carry on whatever the inner group is doing, because you don't have to be a part of the inner group to be contacted by them to for them to have a more alignment with those who are in your immediate environment. So when I met him, I very much was in control of sort of my world. I was performing. Negril is an environment where there are multiple stages, so there are multiple opportunities for me to just try to get on the stage sometimes to do two songs or four songs or to do a complete set. Um, so that, and the fact that I have this jewelry that I make that is unusual and that I knew that would be appreciated in that environment. So when I met this person, he's sleeping in his car on the property where I work. I wasn't inviting him into my home immediately. So I knew that he was not like just struggling, but was sort of, really trying to get whatever he had going there happening again, because it wasn't happening in the way that he needed it to happen. And so, it was like, although he looked a certain way and seemed a certain way and definitely reminded me of my ex, although, um, very, very different beings. Um, I didn't see any reason for there to not be a certain respect, because when I did let him into sort of my life, only after maybe a month or month and a half of having initially met, where he's texting me from Kingston. So it was very simple and easy for me to invite him in. Um, and he was out of resources. He had a rental car that he couldn't give back to the people he rented from because he couldn't pay for it. So there was a lot of things that I kind of like jumped in because I'm like a kind person anyway. So being now with somebody who I see as this great potential of a relationship and sort of renegade enough to actually quite possibly not be a part of these group because they really would have to um, convince someone who is sort of this rebellious person anyway. So I figured of all the people that maybe didn't get roped in to some game or some agenda, maybe he isn't, you know? Even though he's sort of in need and even though he's sort of in the third world, I didn't know certain particulars about um, the culture of people who had done a hard time in America and had been deported back to the Caribbean or to South America. There's a huge part of the population which is that as well because the States and Canada and Europe don't keep they you know people get deported after they anyway. So there was a lot of things that I didn't understand, but feeling a sort of respect in the relationship. I mean, when you walk into my apartment, there is a sign over my bed because it was just me. I mean, that says some leaders are born women. Um, and it was just one of my t-shirts because I have it on t-shirts as well, and I just have this t-shirt like there. And it's something that I remember him commenting on and sort of being very proud of me because I was the one leaving when he was living with me. I was the one leaving every morning and going to set up my business on the beach. Mind you, it was right across the street from where I lived. So I was the one making money and bringing it in for us. I was the one, I was the breadwinner. And he was fine with that. And I really kind of liked that because there's a certain mindset all over the world as far as the role of a male and the role of a female in a relationship. But I'd been a New Yorker. I am a New Yorker still, in a way, because it's like mindset and, just the way that you have just your own internal habits and things that how you define yourself. Um, so I met somebody who mean when whatever I came in with is what added to the pot because the only pot that was there was what I was bringing to the table because he was there trying to make something happen and it wasn't happening. And so I was just like really happy to be in this relationship with someone who was so attentive. Fine, I was going to the beach and setting up my business and selling jewelry and coming in and making jewelry at night and stuff like that, or putting the finishing touches on stuff that was in progress because I was always making stuff was always in progress and some kind of um but like he seemed to understand me, could see me, could appreciate that the things that I was able to create was what creating industry and what was benefiting us both, and we weren't living some diminutive sort of existence. We were getting whatever we wanted, getting a vehicle, renting a vehicle when it was necessary, shopping for whatever it was that was, and I was only in the grill for maybe 2 months or so before I meet him, realizing that in order for me to create industry for myself and for me to be able to function, I needed to be in an environment where I was maybe making US currency for my jewelry, as well as having an environment where I can have bands around, where I can sing songs, where I can start doing cover songs, yes, but also figuring out how I can use the same rhythms from the cover songs and putting my songs on it. Because that's really the only way that I was able to perform some of my songs because the bands don't know my songs. So there was this idea and this feel and this grounding of mutual respect because I was the breadwinner and it felt great because there wasn't anything that said that the person who I am isn't being appreciated because when I'm on the beach, he's hand washing my clothes. He's cooking and bringing over lunch sometimes. He's, fine. He's on the phone all day. He's in the room all day. He's, cool and, nothing. He's just at ease. He's like living at ease. Like when you're a part of a couple and, a team, or whatever you want to call it, we were doing this together, and it was that almost immediately. I mean, just over me, a month or so maybe into us living together and sort of being together all the time, all the time, all the time. Um, I remember him starting to say, I could really fall in love with you, until he started to say, I'm really in love with you. And I would still be saying, I really enjoy getting to know you more and more. And he's like, I'm gonna have to start calling you Ja like instead of Ja love, because I'm in love with you and you're not talking love right now, you're talking like. Because I felt the intensity, especially of the togetherness. I mean, I would come in and it would start to drizzle, and he's like racing outside to the line because there's stuff on the line from earlier that was washed that was left out there because they weren't dry yet, and they were on my stuff. It was like, he knew everything that I had as far as clothing. Like, yeah, a lot of times he would suggest what I wear or suggest I wear something different from what I was wearing. And I kind of like that as well because I was so in control of everything that I was doing and everything that was happening in my own everything, that it was great just to be a part of a team, and a team. And although he was not supportive of my music, of me performing, because it was always like, they, because they weren't wanting to give me the mic all the time. It was sort of a fight, and as a female, you do have to sort of fight for the mic in a way, like kind of be like just stand at the stage and be demonstrative, and finally it happens because it's the entertainment world. People want you to compromise, and I didn't come from an environment or a mindset of life that said compromise was one of the options. Because again, I'm a New Yorker. I'm a traveler, and I'm a traveler not because I was with somebody who's a traveler and I just always went along. It's like I was a traveler. I was earning as well, so you would balance the thing, go to places, sometimes for long weekends, like in just a warm environment, or sometimes to go discover another culture or, see another part of the world. So the reason I'm, anyway, so respect, I didn't question. Kindness, I saw the balance where he would do housework and clean and stuff like that as a balance, because I was the one going out there and I was the one when I came in making jewelry. So I felt that. Self-awareness. I was definitely aware of myself as a singer, as a designer, as a woman who wanted to empower others as well. Um, the thing is that being self-aware, you can be self-aware and be very um, knowing who you are. I mean, Marcus Garvey talks about confidence. Without confidence, you can't really accomplish anything in the world. And we're not really from a race of people that have had a history of upliftment. So there's a lot of learning that for yourself and growing that within yourself that you have to do, no matter how you look at it. It's like a necessity. So so aware of myself as a woman who can be an equal partner in a relationship. And him obviously must be recognizing that, because when he can do it, he's going to come in with his half. We're going to have balance, because like it just feels good, and it feels good to be desired and to be having so much attention on me when I'm like not letting anybody close. When I do realize that this thing is a cult and this thing was about taking my mind and this thing was about like sort of this constant, and then when it became that I was too strong for for the actual gated community, now I was like supposed to be choosing from what's going on around me, which is the immediate environment, had nothing to do with even what's going on in the quote unquote community. So there was all this odd stuff. So it was really about keeping distance, and especially with somebody who has locks on their head. But again, this is like this rebellious kind of person. I mean, if there was going to be somebody who is not immediately or is not coming to me with an agenda or anything but their own agenda of seeing somebody, I guess, who they could control, as opposed to being a part of a group of people who just want to play out some mockery into my existence, which is a totally different, sort of interaction, just from seeing it coming from that place, so that the issues that we're having is coming from that place as opposed to a place of just like, not normal narcissist behavior, right? As opposed to narcissist behavior that is umbrellaed under what the cult wants them to do, which is a totally more just, So anyway, compassion. I did feel this sense of compassion and understanding me, and because in talking about what I'd sort of endured and what I'd continue to endure, and there was sort of seeming to be an understanding. And I remember he came up behind me, and because I wasn't leaning my back against anything, and he came and put his back against my back because he was on the phone or something while I was making jewelry. And I have the hacksaw blade in my hand. I have the sandpaper going. Like I'm actually doing the woodwork, not the beadwork. And he comes and sits behind me so that my back can rest up against his back. And I think the first time he did that, I was listening to like one of the Abraham Hicks sort of like things are always working out for me kind of program, because I was in this intense thing of learning how to learning about the subconscious and learning about neuroscience as much as I can, and sort of learning what the different things are that I can use to just be this constant inspiration to myself and be creating what I want into my environment. Know that I've been empowered by just this openness of a scope of what the possibilities are for me. Um, so it was this newness. So I definitely felt a compassion. I guess that would be also an empathy from this person, because they seem to understand. I also remember when it comes to empathy and compassion or whatever, there were times when my shop was open. Like if they would have an event on the property or on the property next door or whatever. And, I didn't go back to shut up, lock up everything, or to pull up my table or whatever, depending on what the situation was. And he would go alone, because I would just be there like I can't even go over there right now or whatever, and he go and pack it up for me, and or pack up my table a couple of times. I remember when they had these big events and I had like my whole thing out. So there was this thing that said, and the way he spoke about the things that I'm creating and the ingenuity of it and the innovate, like that kind of stuff. It was like this very grounded understanding that I've sort of been able to reinvent not just myself but these things that people see in one way, but yet they're able to walk away with something that is supposed, like these earrings that I'm wearing, like this is something that goes riverside. So wherever you see the river empty down into the ocean, you'll find these trees. And most people see it and it's just like this brush type thing, or some people, they have, some people use it to scrub things or whatever. They use it for different things, like in the bush. But I was able to see it, notice it, and figure out how to preserve it, carve it, create it, and then it's this thing with this texture, and and do it in all these different forms. So you create something basically out of nothing. To me, what I do is magical. The jewelry I create is like, It's magical. And even when I get shapes from other people and do my painting or repurpose it and do something, it's like when I was in New Kingston, which is like a corporate area, the way that I was able to really get people to even start buying my jewelry was because I was doing repairs. People would have their costume jewelry, all these different kinds of jewelry, and I could either remake it into something else or create earrings from something that's a long necklace and make it a shorter necklace or whatever. Recreate a lot of the stuff that they already had so that they can wear it or just fix the clasps or fix the whatever. I was doing jewelry repair. Um, and what I would say is, you can purchase something from me. So depending on how much work it was or how much materials I had to use, I would say you can purchase something from me as my payment. You understand? So I was doing it that way, and then people would really get into it, especially the earrings. I was selling a lot of earrings that way. People would buy one earring and then they would start getting more stuff because corporate people are always trying to do like something maybe even just a little different because they'll have the same suit or the same things that they'll wear all the time, and then it's just these little tweaks that will make it feel or seem different. As I come back into the world and accept all the different facets of myself, I can't downplay who I am, so I have to start accepting all of me. Because I remember, like, in the travels, you can't really talk about traveling because people who haven't traveled yet or people who don't really see that as whatever, or you just talking about it, make other people feel uncomfortable. Because there be people, they have so much more as far as wealth or whatever than I have, but they haven't traveled yet, or they haven't allowed that, or that wasn't a priority for them. So, but you talking about it feels to them like you're showing off, or feel so. There's certain things that you don't even talk about your travels, or you don't talk about what it's like to be this kind of a person or whatever and functioning in the world because you're not even supposed to notice that about yourself. Certain things you're not even supposed to know. So yeah, also there was this idea of shared goals because as he was in the grill and realizing that I am talented, although he'd never heard me sing, but he knew that I was performing. He knew that people knew me already. He knew, and yet he was never pushing me to go on the stage. He was saying things like, these stages are too small for you. That's why it's difficult for you to get on because the people who already have the mic don't want you to have the mic because you are a talented person. They're just mimicking other artists. So he was saying things like that, which was getting me to not even really rush at the mic. Got to his country and got on that first show. He had never heard me perform. He had never heard me sing. He was actually kind of selling this talent that I have to somebody and getting me on a show without ever having heard me sing. So when rehearsals started, no, when I started to actually sing, and then when he was able to compare what I'm doing to the people who were going to be on that show, that's when it became sort of an offense to him to have to hold the camera while I'm rehearsing or whatever, because it's like now he's complaining to the people around him. Like when we get back home, he's complaining that he's now cameraman to her, like he's supposed to be the star and yet he's now behind the camera for somebody else who's becoming star. Like, how did this happen? So that's it's not like you form a conjecture based on your own thought processes or your own concerns or whatever. It's what you heard, it's what you saw, it's what you know to be so. So in talking about, I know these people and we could, I can do this and I can introduce you to this and that was great talk. And it did happen where one person got called one time, but it was never to be again because it became very clear. It was okay. Two things happened at once: the actual show, but a part of that was any promotions going on around that. So all of the television interview and all of the radio interviews were going on, and also there was like a news program type what's going on in the city type of streaming thing that was sort of separate from it, but all happening at the same time. Once that was happening, and it was obvious from the streaming and other musicians, artists that were at the streaming, and the performance, and the other people who were in the rehearsals, for the because the rehearsal for the streaming was just one rehearsal, and then the streaming happened a couple of days later. The rehearsal for the show was, you know, meetings with the promoters, with the producer, with the promoter and the people who, the executive, I don't know what you call it, the ones who producing it, um, with the band, learn with the band learning the songs that I'm going to be creating. So rehearsals is happening. I was taken away from rehearsal by the second or third rehearsal to go to the country next door to fix a car that could have been fixed a week and a half after later, when I was when no rehearsal, like after the show, when no rehearsal was going on. But in the middle of my rehearsals, I was brought next door to the country next door. We drove over there to fix a part of the car that could have been fixed a week, or a week and a half, 2 weeks after, which was so right in the time, because it was now that um, they made the one phone call, but no, the actuality was happening. The unfolding was happening. What it means to be with somebody who is a talented singer, or who is a rapper, or who is doing dancehall, conscious dancehall songs. Now it is becoming obvious what it is going to be like. So it's one thing for somebody who has a narcissistic way of dealing with life to think that, okay, let's do this, especially when they're motivated with money, by money. It's another thing to realize that us collecting that money now is going to mean me having power, or me becoming a star. And now the plans that we had, the goals that we had set, one of the main reasons, because, you know, I was in Jamaica, he's in his country, and he had like three weddings. No, first it was two. He had two weddings coming up back to back. I think they were in November, latter part of November. So from October, he's talking about it. He wants to try to get a ticket. None, that's not happening. So when my mom came to Jamaica from England, because every time, every year around that time, October, November, that time, she spent like 3 months in Jamaica from England. So she's in Jamaica, and I'm telling her, oh, it'd be so great because he has these weddings coming up, and he wants me to be there because he's always going with the kids. And he's like, it was this big thing, like he wanted me to be there, because one was like, a person that he's hoping to do work with, and another was like a family wedding. And then by October was coming up, there was a third wedding, so that was going to be in December. So there was all this going on. So I'm like talking to my mom, like, wow, it'd be great. I didn't even ask my mom, and she offered. She was like, okay, for your Christmas, then I'll get your ticket. So my mom bought the ticket for me to go over to him, and all this other stuff happened with the ticket, so I was even not even able to make it for all of the weddings. So all of this stuff, but I saw this because one of the things over and over and over, it was like this ex playboy, this ex used to be like, in the streets bachelor with the bike, and, riding around on the Harley Davidson with the pretty girl, and, who's always got to be featuring, and sort of this, larger than life personality. I didn't really realize what all of that was going to mean. And nor did I understand what the quote unquote deportee culture is in the Caribbean and South America, and what the mindsets are of those who have done a hard time in America, who are then sent back home, and who they are as human beings, and what their mindsets are, and all of that. So it's like I'm not even prepared for just those kind of beings, like, because I just not, it was like him talking about the New York he knows and me talking about the New York I know. It's like it's as if we existed in two totally different worlds, and yet we were both in New York for a time there. He was in New York. So, we were living our lives, but yet having totally different experiences. And yet this kind of person, when I'm coming out of this cult and I'm telling him about this cult stuff and whatever, this kind of renegade person had the possibility. And I mean, he didn't seem like he could be a typical Rasta in a lot of ways. First of all, he uses scissors in his hair. He cuts his locks to keep them at shoulder length. He doesn't allow them to grow taller than his shoulder. And that's something that's totally against the Nazarene vow or whatever you're supposed to take. You're not supposed to use scissors or razor on yourself. Yes, more and more Rastafarian men are shaving up their beard and stuff, or shaving it off completely. Um, some of them, I guess, or definitely shaping it up, if not shaving it off. But shaving it off and all of that is, I mean, all certain things you're not supposed to. It's just against. Um, Meat kind and all of that is in the house with the children that were raised. So there's certain things that are supposed to be quote unquote Rasta that weren't. And so I was taking all of those things, like a Rasta man who has been a single father since his kids were toddlers is not going to be buying meat and chicken and sausage and whatever in the house and having them cook that for themselves. And he eats something different all the time because he doesn't eat meat. Although he does eat fish, yet it's a very, so there's certain things that said he's not Rasta, which, because first of all, he's shaving his whole body, all of his body, he's shaving. There's certain things that you just don't do. Um, so yeah, there's certain things that I didn't really understand. And as far as this cult is not even necessarily Rasta. So the things that I'm using to judge whether or not somebody might or may not be involved, you know, I mean, I don't know. You understand? But um, what I do know though is that people will set traps for you. And even if you just got scathed by the trap, they might get enough footage, enough video for them to be able to tell a story about you later on. You understand? So there's all of these different levels. So although you might have escaped something and feel relatively unscathed, you're not really unscathed, because once they have something on video, they can use it or say whatever they want or interpret it however they want to interpret it. Once they have you in a photo, they can use it and put something there. You understand? It's like there's so many possibilities. I do computer graphics. I edit video now. We know that I've been teaching myself the editing programs. And before, when I was producing my series, television series, the Dance Off competition, um, I had my editors there, and I was learning how to edit the programs, because once they get it from the computer, I'm on Final Cut Pro, editing and stuff like that as well. So I was learning certain programs. It's just that right now I don't have that program. So I'm learning these other programs and sort of, doing it that way. Um, so yeah, so a lot of the signs didn't show itself, because if it's such a case, because there was a lot of things even at that beginning part where there was very little like where my opinions really kind of mattered. I was okay with him taking control in a certain way, because I was so used to being in control of everything, of every aspect of life. I just wanted so much to be a part of this team, and he seemed to fit the qualities that I wanted and seemed to be ready to, even if he's not at the place in his life where he wants to be, we can do this together because I'm talented and he has connections, and he keeps telling me that over and over. If he just come to where I am I'll do this and I'll do that and let's do this. He was like, and there would be certain things like I would cook and come out, with the stuff or whatever, and he would just be like married and done. Like, or we would be on the phone or something, he's like married and done. Like there was this constant thing from him of marriage.
Believe me, your dreams are worth your smile. The universal law's got it right.
Having had the last woman that he had a real relationship with, I guess they were together for 3 years, 8 years ago, or 9 years ago. This person who he very much wanted to be with, he chose her because of these qualities that he now complains about, is somebody who was very much on the social scene, very much liking to dress a certain way, very much about the lifestyle that he was leading. Because when I came to his country, this is not the same person. There's certain things that we were experiencing together as a couple that became almost this, like it was far over there as a possibility, the things that were even happening. Um, because it went from what you would know, what I could know see was is like a vulnerable narcissist where he's very much in need of what I have, my energies, even my affection, in reteaching him how to love. Very much in need of finances, very much in need of me, like helping him to understand like the spiritual people that he's dealing with over there. They're kind of leading him in one direction, like he needs to stand in his own spirituality and stop depending on other people to do this and that and all this stuff. um so I did feel like there were things that I was adding that he was listening to, but that didn't happen once we were together in the house that he already has all these rules and already has all these dynamics um set, like these set dynamics that already existed there. um so I'm seeing a different person. I'm seeing this over the top person with all this fury at the world. If you don't get out of the way, he'll jump out of the vehicle like he's going to go after the taxi man or the bus man. Very super hyped, super sort of aggressive, super yet in its dynamic, it's almost like you start living in that frequency. So you're I guess I was sort I am it's a different realities. It is another alternate sort of universe to always be, but again, this is a different kind of being. Like I didn't realize until recently that wait, I didn't meet somebody who was a grandiose narcissist. What I saw when I got to their country wasn't what was being displayed at all. At all, at all, at all. I didn't see those signs, I didn't see that stuff. And it's because it didn't exist there. It seemed that once this person is back home, that's when they really flex the way they like almost like truly are or something. I don't know. And then there's this thing where everybody knows me, everybody's supposed to know me. The flashing of the hair happens because, and that's why it's kept at a certain length so that it can move and bounce. And I just started to see that this person has sort of a grandiose thing, yet it wasn't like a judgment, it was just an acceptance because I'm fine with that. Like if you're the person that can be there for me, be our own bucket, because like I remember going through high school not looking like you know how you go in the bathroom with the other girls or whatever it is, and or you washing your hand or whatever. I made it to a point not to look in the bathroom mirror. The mirror is gonna feel different and look different or whatever to the group of girls that you're with. So it's not to alienate anybody. You sort of just kind of don't play what's going on with you or whatever, because you want to always just you get used to not paying a sort of attention. So I was already used to that. I was used to doing stuff a little different, like the West Village, like the village kid. kind of thing with the different color hair sometimes or whatever, just to, say, yeah, I'm different. It's not that I'm this, I'm different, I'm interesting, I have dynamic stuff going on, 3 weeks into me landing in that country, I'm starting with the music stuff. Um, you understand? And then after that, it was like no more music stuff. So now we're gonna deal with the jewelry stuff. And even with the jewelry stuff, there was this thing because when people buying jewelry and stuff, they don't just buying jewelry, taking pictures with you. They're taking pictures of the stuff and sending it to people. They're videoing it. They're taking, there's a lot of energy going to that too. When we go to expos, sometimes there's thousands of people coming through, and although not everybody buying, a lot of people stop and talk. A lot of people admire stuff, the jewelry, the workmanship, the different stuff. Usually I'm telling you what the spiritual nature is or components are to whatever the wood is or the tree. Like most of the stuff that I have, there's like a story that goes behind it, and that kind of thing also is what, to me, it's magic. You start from nothing, you create something, you bring it out to the world, and they love it, they appreciate it, they wear it for years, they come back for more stuff for themselves, for their family, for the people that they love. So there's all this love and magic that goes with with my jewelry. The music is the same thing. You sit there, you write a song, you find a rhythm for it, you bring it out to the world. People love it, people dance to it, people memorize it. It feels great. It feels great because it's something now that you have created that now becomes a part of the landscape. And I mean, I would sit there. I'm sleeping right there on the sidewalk, basically. You know what I mean? Like not on the sidewalk, but it's like right there. And I'm seeing this person in this bank wearing my jewelry, and this person going to work wearing my jewelry, and this teacher wearing my jewelry, and and oh, I remember this one. I fixed the thing for them. I did so there was always this thing, and that I think that's one of the things that saved me from just going into this place of like, how can because I was being appreciated um by the community while I'm there, um, focusing on the attentions of of another entity. And sometimes the very people that's around me don't even that's peripherally a part of that entity don't even know about the particulars of something called the tradition. So those who are sort of, just there doing their thing as a Rasta, do even understand the inner things going on. And because I'm sort of embarrassed by it, or I don't really know who to talk to about it, or who knows about it, or how much of it I'm supposed to talk about, yeah, and whether or not you have gotten used to insults, and or whether you yourself start to insult. No, I have been sort of, I don't know if it's getting used to it, but you're dealing with a cult, you're dealing with multiple people, you're dealing with people with agendas, you're dealing with people who are, who are happy to be reached out to by somebody who's famous, or somebody who's connected to somebody who's famous, or whatever you want to call it. So, what I realize is that, like, even last time that I was in the presence with this person, um, he came and was about to go outside in his towel. Now, it's this towel that I know from the house, from where we all occupied as a family initially. And I reacted to seeing him about to go outside in that towel because I remember. And it's like, if you don't know that there was trauma that happened around this, and especially that particular towel, that's one thing. Another thing I realized also is with the cooking and the food. A part of Rastafarian culture is that the men do not deal with women when they're on their period. If you're on your period, you're not going to sleep in the same bed as a Rasta man. You're not going to, of course, he's not going to be sexual with you or whatever, but he's not going to sleep in the same bed. You cannot cook for him when you're on your period. You cannot, like like a lot don't even want you in the car with them and stuff like that. Don't want you in the same living area. A lot of times they'll go to another living quarters or whatever it is, or another part of the house for that week, um, or you're asked to, so that they can use the kitchen and whatever. So no, the other day also he came, and when he found out I was on my period, he did not want to eat the food that I had cooked, even though he wanted to eat the food that I cooked. And somebody who doesn't understand or doesn't know that his practice is to not eat from women, whether it's his child or his woman or any other. In fact, when he chooses restaurants that he eats from, he only eats from restaurants that have male cooks or females who are over a certain age. He might do it one time, but he's not gonna go back and back to a restaurant when he knows that women are the chefs. He only deals with female chef restaurants if they're 50 and up or 50s and up or whatever. But usually he prefers male chefs generally. So if you don't understand that or know that, you would think that he's just saying that he doesn't, well, he doesn't like the food, that's why he's not eating it. No, he's not eating because he has been programmed not to eat from women who are on their period. He says that bad things happen to him when he's around a woman while she's on her period and stuff like that. In fact, maybe 4 months, 3, 4 months in, because when I first got there to his country, he was sleeping in the living room when I'm on my period. Then it became, okay, we'll sleep in the same bed, but we won't cuddle. And then it's like, okay, we'll cuddle. So, and then it's like, okay, you can cook for me. It's because it's me. Because so the longer we were together as a couple, the more that stuff didn't matter anymore. But yet the other day when he showed it up and came over next door, because now I'm next door, I'm in the country next door. He's back to this thing where he's not eating from me because I'm on my period. So I already I already know that he's already gone back to certain things or whatever it is, which makes sense. Yet I already know what the possibilities are. Even with all these rules, for the last 30 something years, this man has not eaten from any woman who's on their period. He and I are in a relationship. All of a sudden, he's breaking rules, 3, 4 months. And it's not because I'm pushing food on him. He started eating from me, even though I'm on my period. He started doing stuff with me sexually, even though I'm on my period. These are all things that are way outside of what he has trained himself to do. But at the end of the day, he was so used to relationships based on things outside of the natural rhythms of love, the natural rhythms of people who fall in love with each other, as opposed to being with somebody who look a certain way, so they make him look a certain way when he's out with them. That may be like that, but I'm wondering sometimes if people's curiosity about me, or people starting to recognize me because I'm doing music or because I'm being interviewed on television or because of the posters or whatever it is know that he's not going to just be seen as like this man with a pretty girl in his arm, but no, it's like I am also somebody. You understand? So it was like all these different things going on all at once. Yet if you didn't understand what was going on, you would say, they just from different cultures and he don't really love the food that she cook. No, you have Bubble Camp. Bubble Camp is the Bubble Dread, Bubble Shanty are one of the different houses. What you it would be like Pentecostal as opposed to Catholic church, or something like that. And with their thing, the women are in another part of the camp if when they're on their period and they get food put to them through a fence. You understand? They're not allowed anywhere in the general population and stuff like that. There's a lot of practices that, go right along with that. And at the end of the day, the women who are the children from this kind of system, as well as the actual women who are the mothers of these children, they have to live with something of being unclean and on this and just beneath whatever, um, because they have a menstrual cycle, which is the very cycle that allows life. I realized that if I stayed like the way that the other people in the house were, which is what I was doing, just really being sort of complacent and happy and joyful and doing all the stuff that, keeps everything positive and motivated. And if I'm just myself, then I'm going to just start having to stop talking instead of having an argument, or don't disagree. Don't bother the disagreement because the disagreement is going to go on and on and on. Don't, it's like, so you stop being. And so I was like, no, I have to start standing up for myself. It's like I literally had to start standing up for myself. I'm just going to become this person who's just under direction and don't feel like I can even really make any decisions for myself. And somebody can do something to you and you start crying, or they do something and it hurts, and so you're kind of, and if you're crying, they don't say, all right, I'm gonna stop doing the thing that I'm doing to hurt you. What they're saying is, you're making a lot of noise crying, you need to really stop. And when they talk about it, they don't talk about why you were crying, they just talk about the day when you were making a lot of noise in the house. So they could be doing all kind of stuff to you, but they don't talk about all the stuff they were doing while you were reacting. They're just talking about what your reaction was. So it's like, why are you even bringing it up if you're not going to talk about what you were doing and why that action happened, why that was said, or why the crying was going on, or why the person was screaming or whatever. Like, it's just amazing, like these things and these ways of like sort of this justification. I mean, I still, in even talking about this, don't know whether or not somebody who started out as a vulnerable narcissist could develop into, or if they were always sort of the grandiose narcissist but were playing a more subdued role because they were themselves in need at that moment and they were sort of away from home. So um yeah, I really don't know. What I started to realize is that eye contact sometimes is like looking straight into a bullseye, like straight in the bull, and the bull's just they're seeing red, and you looking at them make them, is like your eyes are is that red, that color. So it's like they pull you in, they're pulling all your energy out of you. So I start having to talk facing in that direction sometime, but having my eyes averted in some other place so that I'm not looking directly. Because once you start looking directly, that's almost when it becomes more and more and more and more. Makeup, wearing makeup as a woman and all of that. Now, I went through years. When I say years, of almost thinking it was against God to care anything about how you look or how you're presenting yourself or whatever. Like making jewelry and not wearing it, or wearing my jewelry but not putting myself together in any way and stuff like that. And once you know how you can look, it's a daily thing when you're deciding that you're choosing not to, because generally as humanity, or certainly when you know better, you do better. I remember reading something from Maya Angelou when I was much younger, and remembering that, like, that was sort of inculcated in a way. Once you know better, you do better. So when you know that doing this and this is going to enhance this and that, it's a choice, and it's a constant choice to make when you know that you're not going to do that, when you have the options, especially if you're going to do certain things or go certain places. I spent enough years downplaying my travels, downplaying my intellect, downplaying who I am because the world might feel uncomfortable with it or uncomfortable with me realizing these things about myself. Why would I be made in the image of the Most High to be who I am and not accept all the different things of who I am and be self aware enough to be able to accept who I am without ego? Even in New York City, where people are traveling, where people more used to being around, but in the third world environment, it's just different from the first world. So things are scope shifted and are in a different light. I couldn't look at the world the same way anymore when I started living in the third world as an adult, especially as an adult without all the resources that I'd always had, because I realized that people don't value each other in the same way. There's a lot of stuff that is not the same, and really, people in these environments are literally pulling each other down, and sometimes they don't even know why. They're just on this race to do it before others, so they start pulling others down in order to get ahead of them instead of joining forces and growing that way. I didn't wasn't socialized in that environment. I was socialized Colorado and Connecticut and Long Island and New York. I was socialized in, Lower Manhattan, different, being sort of knowing that your mind and your intellect is going to be what, you know what I'm saying, moves things forward in a way. And like really putting a real and true worth to how much you choose to grow your own internal landscape. Like that to me is like, you know, the word versatile. Once I understood what that word meant, was like, whoa, I love that word, and that's the word that I like describing me. And music played right into that once I realized that that is my that's my talent. That's what I was always meant to do. All of the things that my life has been so that I can understand all these different things and then synthesize it in a way that can help those who haven't been able to experience a lot of the things that I've been able to experience, and then to come back to the all. It's like it's that a story of going to find your bliss and then bringing back what you've learned to the all, um and yeah, and doing it that way. I am thankful that I'm at this place now in it, because me now realizing that I it's time for me to dress the part for my future. I am listening to these motivational stuff. I am listening to certain things, and I am looking to empower myself up out of what was going on. And a lot of it is about dressing for your future self. So there's little things that I would have thought to never do that I decided, hey, this is me. This is me. This is how I'm going to be when I'm on the stage, when I have the freedom of, movement, when I have the freedom of everything, and this is me. And, it's like, I choose to represent the power of the woman in this way. Then you ask me, well, is this and is that? And I'm like, this is how I choose to represent the power of the woman, or the eclectic ness of a being, or the this is how I choose to express me. You understand? If I've been working on feeding my mind just as much as I can feed my body the natural stuff that it needs, and be able to, why isn't it okay to be a well-rounded person? This man is peeling lashes off of me the second time I ever tried. Like, I'm trying it. You understand? They put it on me before because I was gonna do a photo shoot, and then I buy it. I'm like, I'm gonna try it out, and yet this person buys these things for his daughter who lives with him. who he is a single father too. He buys her makeup. He sent her to school for 2 months to learn how to put on her own makeup. But yet, if another woman puts on eyelashes and makeup, it's because, well, you don't even need makeup, and you don't this and you don't know that, and it's all this judgment. Even though for his own 22-year-old, he's buying the false lashes, he's buying the false nails, he's buying the makeup, he's sending her to class to learn how to put on her own makeup. Why? He's not about her going out there and learning how to and learn and being a part of the workforce. It's about her knowing how to put herself together. So when it's time for everybody to get dressed and go out, she knows how to put herself together. And yet, any woman putting on makeup, he would never say, I buy my child her makeup. And when I tell her to put on makeup, if they're going somewhere, he tells her what to wear. He tells her what to do, what to put on, and she's not allowed to do anything outside of what he tells her to do. Yet, if we see a woman on the street with eyelashes on, he would talk down about her like she's nothing because she's wearing lashes, and it's so ugly and it's so this and it's so that. Yet he buys the same thing for his 22-year-old. He purchases it and brings it. I realize that there's certain things that I need to do that's going to be a little different. Like, what are the things that I am going to be doing when I'm going on the stage, when I'm performing, when I'm doing certain things? Even if I'm not doing that stuff all the time, it's something that is breaking me out of what I'm doing now all the time, which is reminding me of the stage, which is programming me. I'm all about programming my subconscious now so that I can start attracting and manifesting exactly what I want and decide, yeah, this is how I want to do it. They talk about my hair. Oh, she's yeah. What about her? Look at how it's staying. But it wasn't like that. It became like this because it was me now deciding that this is how I'm gonna project myself. It was like a rebellion against all of the wrapping up and all of the. It's like and my inner being created this hairstyle. My inner being decided that this is how I'm going to represent. This is how I'm gonna do it. This, and so I have and I do, and yet it's so different. It's so unique. It is different and unique. And me saying those things, it just means that I'm self-aware enough. It's like being an anthropologist enough to be able to see something, write on it, comment on it, and still be somewhat objective. Because they set their traps, and then if you just get scathed by the trap, they still have enough footage for their story of you that they want to tell people who might side with you to actually work. Because at the end of the day, people are seeing the world through the lens of what they're dealing with. So whatever the lens are, that is the lens that you're putting on the most. That's the lens that you're using to view everything and everyone. And so people are constantly being filtered through that lens. Some people don't even know they're going through a process. It's just at the end of it, they end up being someone who has been programmed or can be programmed easily, or can go through different modes of hypnotism. Now, how could I so have missed sort of what is this sort of grandiose narcissist? And it didn't start out that way at all.